And now something completely different.
Good afternoon. I'm speaking to you live just outside
I like to think balding is just God's way of saying, now let's see you get laid.
Is it true that if you don't use it, you lose it?
What I'd really like to do is put the greatness of this man in perspective.
The hair loss community has a lot to be thankful for, having you as a spokesperson.
You mean you just call this guy up?
About life and about reality.
And now, America's #1 reality radio show for men. Live from Los Angeles, it's Spencer Kobren's The Bald Truth.
What a fucking day. Welcome, guys. 888-659-3727. You are listening to and watching The Hair Loss Show. This is The Bald Truth. Thank you for hanging out and waiting for the show to start. It has been some day here at the TBT compound. And somehow we got this stuff working, but didn't get to the studio till late. A lot of shenanigans happening. But I'm here to do the show. So obviously you see Joe Tillman. He's live in our studios in Vancouver, British Columbia. Joe, how are you?
Can't complain. How about yourself?
I can complain a lot, but I'm not going to.
Well, I was going to say, I was going to give you the room, the platform actually for all the complaining, because you do certainly have plenty of reason for it.
But you know what? This is how I feel about life in general. I mean, what the fuck is the point? What is the point of complaining? You know, just you deal with your shit, you move on, you do the best that you can. I have to live in my own brain and my own world, and I have to then come out here and do my best to help people and to guide people in the safest possible direction when it comes to this insane industry. And that's what you're here for, too. Yeah. You know, oh, Jesus. People are calling me. The whole thing is just so.
People are calling you? How dare they?
Yeah.
They should know better by now.
You know, I decided to make a post on Facebook today, actually yesterday, last night.
Yeah.
I was going through some stuff. As you know, I'm building a new studio, and I've been going through some of the stuff that I have that I've collected over the years. And obviously, as you know, I keep a file on everything.
On everything.
Everything. So I was going over the real history, the true history of FUE, hair transplant surgery. And obviously at the beginning of my file was the beginning of the history of FUE, which included a VHS videotape that was sent to me by Dr. Ray Woods of Australia back in 1999. And the reason he sent me this tape was because this guy tracked me down. He didn't even call me in New York. I happened to be visiting Los Angeles. I was still living in New York. I was visiting Los Angeles, came out here when CBS Radio, KLSX, offered to syndicate my program. And yes, guys, even though I ended up owning my own program and brokering time over the years, at one point I was paid to do this broadcast in Los Angeles. And I chose to no longer take CBS's money because, sadly, they were selling ad space in and around my show to, let's just say, companies and the product manufacturers and service providers who I could not recommend.
That you chose not to associate with.
Exactly. So instead of taking the money that I was getting on a monthly basis from CBS Radio as a paid broadcaster, and I guess what pisses me off sometimes is that there are guys in radio that to this day call the Bald Truth an infomercial. And there were also some other guys out there actually in the industry that tried to somehow make that clear to doctors, when in fact that was never the case. And I chose to broker time after I realized, wait a second, I mean, radio is about ad sales. What do they give a shit? It's not their responsibility to pick and choose who they're going to be selling ads to.
Yeah, just as long as they're selling the ads, that's all that matters.
Their job is to sell ads, and I got that. So I came out here. I was able to broker a deal. I'm in a hotel room, okay? I was staying at the it was the Universal Hilton at Universal Studios. Get a phone call on the hotel phone, and it's a guy with this Australian accent who introduces himself to me, and his name is Dr. Ray Woods. I'm like, how in the hell did you track me down?
And what's scary about that, being in 1999, there weren't the online resources that we have today to track people down the way we do today. Wait, not that I track people down. Sorry.
Right.
Anyway, yeah.
Well, it turns out that he had contacted, well, I guess it was through the radio stations.
Yeah.
Long story short, came to me, wanted to introduce himself and tell me about his procedure, which he called not only the Woods technique, but microfollicular transplantation.
Mm-hmm.
And had a long conversation with him. He said he was willing to fly out to New York himself and meet with me, that no one would listen to him, that he had contacted Dr. Bobby Limmer. He contacted other members of the ISHRS. Everyone rejected the notion that his technique, which is now known as follicular unit extraction, was a viable technique for hair transplantation, would not even allow him to present his technique, at least according to my recollection. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what he told me. At any of the ISHRS conferences or to anyone. No one wanted to see it. They basically said, this is just a iteration of the old plug technique. We've tried this before. It doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So he figured he'd reach out to me. And I'm like, all right, well, you know what? I'd be glad to, you don't have to fly to New York. Send me some information. If you can send me some, the procedure on tape, and then if I can meet a couple of your patients, that would be great. And if I see a patient that I think is, really worthwhile having on the program, if I think this is a viable option, then why not? I'll promote it. Wasn't being paid to do this. So long story short, I decided to post about this on Facebook because there's a lot of stuff going on about FUE now. There's a FUE conference in Turkey coming up, right?
Yes, there is.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys who are making all kinds of claims that they are the pioneers in FUE, that they are the leaders in the field, yada, 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 or they invented the procedure. And sadly, Dr. Woods is nothing but a footnote in the history of follicular unit extraction. Partially, it's his fault. But the fact of the matter is, whether it's his fault or not, he invented it. And
he invented it, and he shouldn't be overlooked, much less ignored, reduced to a footnote. I mean, like you said, it is partially his own fault, but at the same time, honest people being honest, they should recognize it and maintain that fact of history.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Give this guy the credit that he deserves. Yes. Do I agree with the way that he handled things initially? No, I don't. I tried to guide him. I told him, I suggested that he publish his technique. I made a lot of suggestions to the guy that, at the time his mind he was unable to wrap his head around.
Yeah.
He wanted to do things a certain way, which I believed would not be beneficial to him or to anyone. And it turns out I was right. And what happened was, once we started to talk about it on the program, introduce a patient on the show, and then get it out to the online influencers of the day, including guys like Feral Man, who had a very popular forum at the time, and me going out there, writing about it, talking about it on the program. At the time, it was a nationally syndicated show. Made a lot of waves, and eventually there were a handful of guys who I was able to convince to perform, or at least try to start working on learning more about the procedure.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the two guys that wrote the first paper both said I was out of my mind, but 6 or 8 months later, they decided to write the first paper because, they saw that there was a tremendous demand. And frankly, I guess they gave it a shot and realized, wait a second, this could work, which is great.
It's amazing what you learn about something when you actually try it.
Yes.
Instead of just look at it and judge it from a distance. And I think that I've always thought this is an interesting story. And, when I met Dr. Woods for the first time last month when he was here in Vancouver, I didn't get too much into the history of the procedure, but I did ask him, what he thought about his creation, which is essentially his creation, being essentially bastardized around the world in the name of a quick buck, with the technician model, with all the machines that have been created to make this an easier and faster procedure. And he told me straight up, he said, I predicted this would happen. Not only am I not surprised, I predicted it. It's exactly as I expected it to happen and unfold. And, he was, we've talked about in the past how he has been reduced to a footnote. We've talked about the textbook that was written by, one doctor, but with contributions from several other doctors, where he's literally not even a paragraph in this book when it is talking about the history of FUE, but it conveniently has every other contributor to this book as having some sort of profound impact on the development in its early stages. And
what amazes me, there's actually there's a picture of one physician who I will tell you, he had nothing to do with the development of FUE. And as a matter of fact, in my view, he really came to the game relatively late. Now, he did express some interest early on, maybe around 2004, 2005 to me, but he wasn't actually in the game. And now he is like one of the so-called leaders of the development of FUE. But I just wanted to put that out there, and I just think that's important that everyone needs to take what they're learning, what they're reading with a grain of salt. The real history is out there about everything, and that also includes the way that FUE is being marketed by device makers and by physicians who are choosing just to jump into the FUE market without, I'm not saying that every physician has to offer strip.
No.
But I do believe that every physician who's doing hair transplant surgery should be familiar with strip and should know the nuances of hair transplant surgery enough to know when a patient is going to be a better candidate for strip and be able to guide them in the best possible direction to have a good strip procedure by a well-known and well-respected doctor. And
I would even argue that, if there were, by the grace of God, some sort of actual official training that was required for surgical hair restoration, that part of the training would include a long, hardcore exposure to strip surgery, so that the doctors could appreciate the value of FUE even more, and be in a position where they can actually say, well, actually, a strip would be a better procedure for this patient, because honestly, there are cases where strip would be better, and I think when doctors are coming into this field, and even if they have great dexterity, great eye-hand coordination, great eye for the artistic hairline, I think that they're potentially missing out on the bigger picture, a true appreciation for what they're doing, and even just being more well-rounded themselves if they can appreciate the strip angle. And I think that in just a short number of years, strip is going to be gone, and that's going to eliminate a very valid procedure that a lot of patients should be able to take advantage of.
Joe, you're right. I believed back then that the yields were lower, and I also believe that most of the numbers and the so-called studies were complete bullshit.
Well, they were, absolutely.
And to this day, a lot of the studies are complete bullshit. A lot of guys who are claiming they have a 2% transection rate and they're doing FUE by hand or using, one of their own devices, they are fucking lying to you.
They were saying they had 2% transaction rate 10 years ago.
Right.
They were saying they had 2% transaction rate 15 years ago when they were first starting it.
Right.
And all you have to do is just look back through history, and you can see that they keep pumping out the same narrative year after year after year. Well, we've been doing some studies.
Right.
Well, great. Where are the results?
Right.
Well, we've been getting 2% transaction rate. Okay, so what's changed? You've been saying that for 15 years.
Right.
Well, we messed around with some chest hair. Okay, where are the results?
Right. Now we're using our own special form of ACell and PRP. All right, explain that to us. How is that actually working? Let's see the data. You know what? There is no data.
No.
People are going online, they're making YouTube videos, and they're saying whatever the fuck they want. So here's the situation. You got to meet patients. You got to speak to people who've had surgery with the doctors that you're considering having a surgery with. You got to make sure, and you know what, this may sound self-serving, you got to make sure they're a member of the IHRS, so at the very least, you can contact us. We can go through our database. We can see the number of complaints and what the complaints are about. I can see whether or not these guys are, and if they do, if they are caught false advertising or promoting anything that seems questionable, listen, we speak to them. We say, look, that's not going to go over well. If you're going to make claims, you have to show the data. Period. Otherwise, you can't be a part of what we do. And I've made choices over the last year and more, actually, to not work with certain doctors because they're out there making claims that can't be proven.
Cannot be validated.
It doesn't mean that they're necessarily bad doctors, but you don't need to bullshit people and make sales. If things are a little slow, you don't need to pick up the phone, solicit people, bash your competition, and then say that you are somehow doing something better than somebody else when that's can't be proved, can't be proven, proved. That can't be proven.
What I found working with doctors of the past few years and past several years is I keep getting I get emails every day just like you do, and I keep finding that the clinics that I keep hearing glowing reviews about are the ones where patients contact me and say, I went and spoke to, this doctor, or I went and spoke to that doctor. And the ones that wind up getting the business from these patients are the ones that have reported to me, and they were just honest with me. They were straight up with me. They didn't sound like, they were a used car salesman, or they didn't, pressure me to sign on the dotted line. Right. And I see this every day. I know you do too. And it kind of escapes me how, any doctor that's been in this industry for a number of years can't see that that's the way to actually conduct themselves for I guess I could say the most productive long-term business plan. Because if you have to resort to the BS, if you have to resort to the high-pressure sales tactics, I'm not talking about regular follow-ups and things like this. I'm just talking about making shit up, studies that aren't studies, that are basically just two guys that came in and kitchen sink science, things like this. If you have to resort to that, then maybe you need to review the quality of your work in general, because it's just I just don't understand how people don't get it, that if you are honest and forthcoming and not, pushing the pressure, that the business will come. I mean, patients appreciate this. Look, because
these guys,
the next guy is doing it doesn't mean you have to.
A lot of these guys are leading with negative social proof. So in their mind, if they bash their competition, if they claim that the work, even if they say it's repair surgery, they don't give a shit about making patients feel bad about their decision.
Yeah, we cover that one.
Yeah, which is insane to me.
Yeah. Oh, this is horrible work. What the hell were you thinking?
Yeah. I could transplant circles around this guy. Why'd you even consider this guy? Why didn't you come to me first? I mean, people come to me and they tell me that there are certain doctors that say this. I'm like, I'm not even talking about the sales guys. I'm talking about the doctors themselves. I'm like, I can't even fucking believe it.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. Now, with all of this said, this is not the Bash hair transplantation hour. Because the truth is, you're looking at a guy, my sidekick, the original hair transplant mentor, who's had several, actually 9 hair transplants, life-changing. His hair looks amazing. And there are thousands of happy patients, just like Joe, who have great experiences, who have great-looking hair transplants. And they're lucky enough to find good doctors. They're lucky enough to, for everything to align. And they were lucky enough to, deal with honest, ethical guys. And there's plenty of them out there. But, not everyone is that lucky. And sadly, there's so many unlucky guys. I mean, it's getting worse than ever. Let me give out the phone number, 888-659-3727. Let's just take a phone call, and then we'll talk about some more bullshit that's been going on this week. Let's see who this is. Hey, man, you're on the air. Who's this, and where are you calling from?
Hello, Spencer.
Oh, shit.
You said Joe's your sidekick. But I remember a time that I was his sidekick.
My name is
Joe from Staten Island.
My name is excuse me. My name is
Would you like to reiterate it?
My name is
Have you heard it? Excuse me.
My name is
Joe from Staten Island.
Not Joe from Staten Island. What's happening, man?
I was listening to some Howard Stern, and Jenna McCarthy came on, and she's always been like pretty provocative and profound in how she speaks. She wants to be, always kind of got that image that she always wants to be. I'm a pretty face, but I'm smart too, and I'm spunky, and I'm just like the boys. It's almost like she's reaching. She's always trying to be accepted in this certain light. I don't want to. And
she's overproducing herself.
Yeah, well, now she's gone even like as soon as she gets on, she's like, they're talking about, I can't remember what they were talking about. They were asking her, and she was like, oh, I thought you'd want to be more interested in how I learned my new ability to squirt. And I'm like, geez, she's really going for the fences. Like, she's talking completely about all this stuff. And she's like bringing up everything sexual to keep focused there, I guess, maybe to get away from the whole travesty that is her thing against whatever.
Her anti-vaxxer stance.
Yeah. And so anyways, through her little thing, talking about her skills sexually and how she learned to give better blowjobs and all that stuff, they were talking about what kind of guy she likes, and she's you know what? She goes, I don't want a guy who's who's this and that. And then she goes into this thing against Propecia, and she's all like, hey, you know what I want? I just want a guy, and I don't care about his hair. I have these guys that are taking Propecia, and I get them, and they have these limp dicks, and I'm like, are you taking Propecia? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, I'd rather you be bald and give me a hard dick than any. And I was just like going, oh my God, she's spreading that negativity.
Yeah.
That's what she literally said, that like every guy that she comes across that has a blank, soft dick, or what I'm trying to censor myself, but that she asked if they have Propecia, and I'm like, there's kind of, it's kind of like my analytical brain, like when you were in college and they tell you, like, before you just listen to any of your survey, look where it comes from, look for the source material and all that stuff to try to figure out if it's true. And I'm not saying, we say it 100 times, we're not saying that those people don't exist. But if a guy has a limp dick and you give him a perfectly good excuse to give him why he has a limp dick.
Oh, he's going to tell exactly.
Well, he's going to take it every time.
He's going to be like, yeah, that's it. The guy never took Propecia in his life. He's like, oh,
doesn't even know what the hell it is.
I've gotten out now.
Yeah.
So is she no longer with what's his name from New Kids on the Block?
I think they talked about him, but I couldn't recall if she's still with him or not with him. I think she's single. No, she's single again, is what she was saying. But
I had no idea.
I was thinking, yeah. Well, there you go. Pack your bags. Get to L.A.
Yeah.
She's throwing out blowjobs and squirts for anybody who gets off the airplane. But I mean, the alternative is like she's this chick who's hot, aging obviously, but she's hot. You're having problems getting it up because you're a little older too, or whatever. Or maybe you're not. Maybe you're nervous because I got nervous once. I was with a porn star once, and she was hot. She was actually a girl that I actually really fucking fancied, and I couldn't. I was just too worried. I was worried about everything from disease to
that's the most.
Going to measure up.
That's the most common problem. Performance anxiety, and that's just the way that it is. And all these guys who are taking this drug, it's in their mind that this is a possibility. So they're dealing. A lot of them, not all of them, are dealing with performance anxiety as opposed to actual sexual side effects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm like, what do you think they're going to say? Hey, are you taking Propecia? Your dick's a little soft. Oh, no, Jenny, that's just my dick. It doesn't work sometimes. They're not going to say stuff like that. They're going to be like, I just fell off my bike. Any excuse in the world.
Yeah.
But, honestly,
she gave him an out.
Yeah.
Exactly. Any guy who hears this, I'll tell you, they may not know my story, but when I first called Spencer, I had not taken Propecia. I had the prescription in my hand. And I was listening to this show for like a month and a half to 2 months before I decided to take that pill because I really sat there and said, I'm going to put myself through the paces. I'm going to see if there's any problems here. Do I have any problems sexually? And just the thought that I may start having sexual problems from taking Propecia, I started to experience. And I'm telling you, it's a handful of times throughout my whole life that I've had a problem. So it's not a lot. So when that happened within that time frame, I knew it was definitely, for me, psychosomatic. Like, I definitely started to be hyper aware of it because we make a transition as males. When we're young, the wind blows across our crotch and we get an erection. It's like the first time a girl winks at you, you might get an erection. Touches your, that's just the way we're built. But just like things, you start getting more familiar with your body and what you are, and and we start watching porn, and then we start getting more sexually adventurous. Like now you gotta do the spit Olympics to get me excited. You can't just say, "Hey, I'm gonna do this for you, big boy." I'm like, "Well, you know what? Start doing it. Put your money in the mouth where your money is." It's But I mean, I didn't. Howard Stern. I have a Sirius subscription. I started listening to him. Came with the car, and I was just like, he does really great interviews. I'll give him that. And he always makes fun of people with, he's got him Sal with hair plugs. And I remember all the stuff that, his suspicions. And it's funny how he just completely, not only, ignores that if he has completely black hair almost and no signs of balding, but yet no one ever, he talks about Trump's hair. He talks about Sal's plugs. He talks about all these people. And he blatantly, I'm above the law. No one can really, and when anybody does ask him, they'll suspiciously get cut off pretty quickly, or he'll say, "Yeah, it's just real hair. My grandfather had this hair just like this."
But you notice though, actually his tone changes from
completely,
to a very
he's been accused,
like a very uncomfortable tone, as though he's been caught, and it's beyond just being accused of something. I mean, if he was just being accused of dealing with it, and he was completely comfortable about it, then he wouldn't have that tone of voice. You could really, it's palpable. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Well,
how old is he now?
Exactly, and
he's in his 60s,
67 or something.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a great broadcaster and stuff, but there's that kind of part. There is a little hypocriticism with him, and
absolutely,
it's funny because I know they screen his calls, but just like he has his prank callers call other, journalists and publications or whatever, should I say, broadcasts, to get them on air and then say something wacky. I'm just really surprised that not a lot of his fans do that to him. They adore him so much they don't really kind of put his feet to the coal,
Well, and that's the thing. There's sycophants, right? And if that's how you pronounce it, and that's just look. I happen to like Howard Stern as well. I haven't listened to him in a long time. But even though he gave me shit years ago, to me it was just great publicity. It was all in fun. Yes, when he bet me $50,000 that his hair was real, and I said that I would take the bet, and then we never heard back from him. I mean, that may raise an eyebrow or two. I mean, how many people would accept a $50,000 bet?
Right.
You know, but to me, it was just like, this is good publicity.
I'd take that bet.
Well, that's the funny thing that you said that, because I heard. Wow, I have a lot of Howard stories now. I heard an old broadcast where he was this guy who was like 5'4" or some crap like that, and I don't know, maybe it's 15 years ago. I can't even remember the guy's name, but he says he stays in shape by playing basketball, and he goes, "I'll take you," and he goes, and Howard started to blow him up like instantly. "I'll kill you. I'm 6'7". There's no way you'll ever make a basket around me. He goes, "I'll swat it out of the air." And they had a huge bet, and that's his MO. Like he will boast, like, you know, hoping that you don't take him up on it, you know. Yeah. And he'll boast like in knowing that he's not athletic. And this one is one of the few bets that actually went through that I've ever heard, where he went and he even got Robin to believe in him. And then when they played, he got shut out like 25-3 or something.
Oh, really?
Stuff like that. Or yeah, because the guy had told him, he goes, "Yeah, I've been practicing with my son." He goes, "Yeah, how tall is your son?" No, he's 6'4", and he goes, you can just hear the wind out of his sail. And he goes, and then when to his credit, he admitted that he got trounced. He goes, like, "I have no athletic skill," but I remember because it was a rerun. They played the two shows back to back, like the Friday show and the Monday show.
Yeah, but the thing is, that's different. I don't know how much the bet was for, but when someone actually says, you know, you bring in Mr. Kobren, let's make a bet. $50,000 that my hair is real. And then my sidekick, Dave, said, "All right, let me get back to you on that." He contacted me, and I said, "Yeah, take the bet." Called Gary probably 5 times. I don't know the exact number, but maybe I can get Dave Salazzo on the air at some point. And they wouldn't call him back. He left voicemails saying, "Kobren will take your bet. Let's make this happen." Nothing.
Yeah.
Silence.
Well, that's just it. He was just like that basketball game. You know, he said something in which he knew wasn't true, and just to maybe shut the guy up, you know, because it was it was really aggressive. It was like, he stood up and goes, "Look at you. You're not going to score, blah, blah, blah." I mean, knowing he's going to have no physical prowess whatsoever. It's the same thing. You know, he's going to say that to make himself, you know, seem
it's talking shit. It's intimidation I mean, that's the way it works. But I would love to see this whole bet thing about his hair be revived, because
dude, at this stage of the game, man, I don't need the press, and I'm not going to bet the guy $50,000 about anything. He already, you know. Well, you know what? Who knows? Maybe. I don't know. If he's willing to do it, maybe.
The point is this. He may not be bald, but you know that hair isn't all his. Even if he has a...
Here's the thing. I don't even know.
I don't think anyone's saying that he's bald. It's just that's not his real hair.
But I don't even know if that's his real... listen, that's the whole point. I never said at any time that his hair was fake. I never said when this person contacted us who claimed to work in his building at the time when he was doing the show out of K-Rock and ride the elevator with him many times, when she said she thinks she saw netting, some sort of netting, because he's so tall, she's like looking at him from behind. I'm like, well, look, I don't know if the guy has any hair loss or not. I have no clue. And that Monday, I did the show I was doing the show on Sundays. Monday morning, I get a phone call from the GM and the station and the program director of KLSX here in Los Angeles, basically saying, Stern is pissed. You cannot talk about his hair. Apparently, you guys are claiming that he's bald. And I'm like, did you listen to the sound check, dude? We never said any such thing. We do a hair loss show. If someone calls in to talk about a celebrity who they think is wearing a wig, what are we supposed to do? Hang up on him?
Say we can't talk about this?
It's a fucking hair loss show.
So we get pissed?
Yeah. And so they're telling me, well, you know, this is our breadwinner. You know, he's what keeps the station going, and this, that, and the other thing, and you know, we can't allow you to do that. And I'm like, all right, dude, we'll never talk about Howard Stern's hair again. But let's make it clear. I never said that Howard Stern was losing his hair or wearing a wig. And then, well, we decided we actually decided to have Dave call in to address Stern directly. And they took his call. And that was 15 minutes of fucking gold. I can't even tell you. I mean, we probably shut down Amazon.com because Dave mentioned the book about 10 times.
Yeah.
You know, it was incredible. And that phone call, that 15 minutes that Howard Stern gave Dave Salazzo from The Bald Truth really set the show on fire for a long time. So I guess I have to thank the guy for being, he was a real jerk to Dave, in my view.
Well, think about his show now and how many people it reaches with Sirius and online, YouTube, all the things that have happened since that day. And now you got someone like Jenny McCarthy going over there saying, oh, all these guys have limp dicks because of Propecia,
Yeah, no, that's actually really bad.
That's real bad, exactly.
And what's really sad is, and I don't know if Chauncey Hayden's listening to the program right now. He's called in before, but the reason Chauncey Hayden ended up having a really bad hair transplant is because he got a freebie from an advertiser of Stern's. And this guy, a couple of guys, him, Steve Grillo, who was an intern at the time, who I was able to help. Bob Bernstein actually fixed the bad work. But these guys had to live lives under hats, hair pieces. To this day, poor Chauncey is scarred pretty significantly. His only saving grace is that he's very pale. So you really have to look closely to see the scarring. And also, as you age, the scars begin to fade a little bit. So he's able to shave his head pretty closely and look good. Yeah. But he was fucked up, man. He really was. And this is a guy, Stern was actually saying, and this was funny, Robin said the same thing. Well, what is this guy Kobren selling? He's selling, lotions and snake oils and this and that and, promoting shitty doctors, this and that. What was ironic about it is that's what Stern was doing.
He was doing.
That was his job. Yeah. He didn't know it, but his job was to sell advertising. And he went as far as to say, I remember he was doing stuff for Feral Hair Systems. It's not saying anything wrong with Feral Hair Systems, but he said it was either Feral Hair Systems or Bosley. I remember the commercial. He said that this hair looks so good, I'm willing to pull my own hair out to get this other hair, to get this new hair. And there are a lot of naive guys out there who think that just because someone of Howard Stern's stature is talking about a product or a service, that it must be good.
Yeah.
Well, that's what bothers me. When you hear him, it's a very unique show in the sense that all those sponsors and people that advertise really want desperately to pay that money and get him to say that stuff. But he has such disdain and such uninterest that literally it's a joke to do the commercials that he's paid to do, which I admit I find them humorous. So therefore, maybe it works. But like there's one he was doing where they were playing it for a long time. He literally just reads off a page and he's eating, or maybe he was eating, and he burps right in the middle. He goes, guaranteed. Yeah. And everybody starts laughing. He goes, he was talking, it was a photo one. You go like, your prints are guaranteed. And then, it was a real burp. It was pretty funny, but it was like that played forever. And then now he has this guy named JD who mumbles a lot. He did, because he was sick the other day. His voice couldn't really do it, he said. But yeah, he could talk for 4 hours. He had JD do it because that was the running joke. JD is a very big mumbler and he stumbles over his words. And that's, you're paying what? I don't know how much they're paid, but it has to be a big chunk of change to get on Howard Stern show. You're paying him to read it, and he has this mumbling, stumbling guy read it. And it's like they still do it. They still flock to it. That's how much.
Well, let me tell you this, and I said this from the beginning. I used to say this when I was on radio. Companies and services who advertise on radio are usually the lowest common denominator of advertisers and products and services. That is just the way it is. You have all the snake oils in the hair world, lotions and potions. You have vitamins. You have penile enlargement pills. You have all the stuff. You have. If you hear a plastic surgeon God forbid. I mean, and you hear it all the time, being advertised on the radio. Or like, I mean, look at this guy that Howard Stern used to, he was involved with for a long time. I'm not going to name any names. But apparently there was some shenanigans. Not Artie. There's some shenanigans going on with this particular plastic surgeon. And some others I think that he was associated with. It's, if you hear about laser resurfacing or plastic surgery or a hair transplantation, unless it's in this program, then my advice is you fucking run. You check that off as
a place not to go.
A place not to go. That is a red fucking flag.
Well,
all right, not Joe from Staten Island. We're gonna go. I gotta take a break, man.
All right, I just wanted to come in with that story because I just thought, that it was terrible to hear on such a big.
It is terrible to hear, and I used to like Jenny McCarthy. She was just kind of fun, nice to look at, and she seemed like she was, probably cool to hang out with. But in her these past several years, she's really kind of shown herself to be a little, I don't know, on the fence as far as the way she conducts herself. And so I think that whole shtick thing is done. And what she was saying on the show, as you said. That was just horrible, and all it does is perpetuate the myth.
It's just really irresponsible.
Yeah,
But the thing is, she's trying to get a laugh. She doesn't even realize she's being irresponsible. Is she really believed in the whole vaccine thing? I mean, she has a kid with, from what I understand, with autism. So she was doing whatever she could to try to, be involved and prevent other women from dealing and other children from dealing with. Autism, and I certainly understand that. But look, how can you take any of these celebrities seriously? That's my view. If I see a celebrity talking about politics, it's like change the fucking channel. Click. You're an actor, dude. Stick to what you know. We all have our opinions, but the fact that people look at these people for life skills, advice, information about politics. It's insane. These celebrities are treated like royalty in this world. They're not rocket scientists. They're actors. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with being an actor, but your job is to look good, remember lines, and do your job convincing people that you're this particular character. That's a hard job to do.
Respond to emails accordingly.
And respond to email. Read your fucking emails like a normal person. Yeah. Don't get overly excited. Read it to the end.
What do you expect of me? I mean, geez. I'm only an actor.
That's true. That's true. Listen, dude.
All right, guys. Have a great show.
All right, man. Thanks for the call.
Thanks for calling.
All right. Take care.
Okay, bye.
888-659-3727 is the toll-free number. Joe, I am going to take a break. When I come back, we're going to take some more calls.
Yep.
And we will also maybe talk more about, I don't know. I mean, do you want to talk about the European FUE conference? I think there's some interesting promotion out there online, which I thought was fascinating to watch.
We can talk about that. I also want to respond to Johnny Ohio, who's in the chat room. He had a question that I'd also like to address about FUE being used for repair work. So,
it would be nice if Johnny Ohio actually called in, because I haven't heard his voice in a long time.
It would be. Give us a call, Johnny.
So, Johnny, give us a call, 888-659-3727. The old chat room game ain't going to work. I may not even let Joe answer the question. All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will take your calls. Stay with us. We'll be back right after this.
The winner of 7 prestigious Golden Forehead Awards.
My family's always arguing. It always starts off innocent and then it gets vicious right away. So I was like, hey, looks like you're losing some hair. At least my wife's not a whore.
Spencer David Kobren.
Hey, guys, welcome back. And that's why Dave is no longer working for the show.
I know you said 9, but I'll just be there at 9:45.
Yeah, right. That's what it is. No, that's one of the reasons, I guess. But welcome back, guys. 888-659-3727. Sorry for the long break. Yeah, I mean, listen, I miss Dave. He was a good guy, sidekick for many, many years. I think over 6 years of The Bald Truth. The show's been on for almost 20 years. It will be 20 years in 2018.
That's crazy, man.
Tell me about it. I just keep getting younger looking, which is weird. But you're supposed to say, yeah, you know, you really look good. But
oh yeah, you look really good.
You're looking great. But yeah, when a guy tells me that my girl looks 30 years younger than me,
I know.
I'm like, Jesus. I guess it's good. It's good for her.
Well, okay, she does look great. She's always looking young.
Yes,
but man, that was just harsh. I think he lost his intro privileges.
Yeah,
Just saying.
And I don't know if this is him on the line. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this, and where are you calling from?
Spencer Kobren. How are you?
I am fine. Who's this?
Johnny, Ohio.
Johnny, you sound different, man.
Well, I'm on an iPhone, so.
Oh, wow. How are you? You sound like you used to have a lot more bass in your voice. Did something happen?
No. I had a gallbladder operation about a week ago, but other than that, no.
Oh, I'm sorry. How are you feeling?
Getting by.
All right. Well, what's happening, man? I'm glad. Well, I'm glad that you survived the surgery.
Yep. Mazel tov.
So am I.
You know.
Good to see you, Joe.
How you been, buddy?
Oh, not bad. Can't complain.
Well, that's good.
Good
man.
answer.
That's
good
good
answer.
So, I mean, what? So obviously you've been watching or listening to the program to some degree, I'm sure. You know that Joe from Staten Island just basically is MIA, right?
Yeah, I tried to get in here a couple times before, and because of work schedule, I couldn't stay long. But yeah, I understand that he sort of dropped off the face of the earth.
Well, I mean, he's still alive, thank God, from what I understand. But I think that he really doesn't want to call the program anymore because of Joe Tillman.
Why is that?
That's true.
He doesn't like Joe.
Didn't like me.
I like Joe.
Yeah.
Joe's the rock star of the hair transplant.
Dude, are you kidding
And I
me,
like
man?
you too, Johnny.
He's a fucking rock star, man. He really is.
He is, man.
Yeah.
Because Johnny's a smart guy.
Yeah, Johnny is.
Yes, I would go that far. If you talk to my wife, she might think differently. So how's things going with you? You still got Hunter, your German Shepherd?
Actually, that's so. Wow, he died 2 years ago, man. It's been a while since you called the show.
Oh man, yeah, he was a beautiful dog. Yeah, I ended up putting the ones that used to be in the background here. I ended up having to put one down. So my heart goes to you, buddy. They're like family.
Absolutely, man. I miss him. I miss him a lot. But you know what? He lived a long life, or he lived a pretty long life, and life changes, man. Life goes on, and that's just the way that it is. You know, you got to enjoy people, animals, you know, people you love and animals you love for when they're there, and appreciate them when they're there. And most people don't do that. They take everybody for granted.
Yep.
Well, it's strange you say that. I'm going through the same thing you went through. I'm going through that with my father now.
Oh, I'm
sorry to hear that.
Sorry. I knew that your dad was having some problems for a while.
Yeah, he's having issues, but you know, it's just I think the tip of the iceberg. You know, it's 83 and he's struggling. I mean, just you know, it's going to be one of those things where we got to sit him down, take his license away from him. It's going to be a rough one.
Oh man, yeah. I'm really sorry. Joe wants to take my license away, but I'm not going to let him have it.
I keep trying, but the stalking order is preventing me. So
yeah, no, dude. Let me tell you something. It's fucking rough. It's a rough situation. Old age. Listen, we are fortunate if we make it to old age, but
we're blessed if we are.
If old age isn't good to us, and I think part of that is luck, and part of it is also just what we do, you know, during our lives.
Yeah,
true. But you know, that's one of the things. That's the circle of life, and we have to deal with it.
Look, I'm about to be 52.
Oh,
and
52.
52, yeah. 50.
Well, I'm 53, so
yeah, 50 fucking 2. So,
not good for your age.
Oh yeah, listen. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? You know,
I mean, your better half 30 years younger, and you're what, 35. So.
At least he was listening.
Look here. A, I'm the better half. First of all, let's get that straight. And B, I'm just kidding, common law, if you're actually listening to the show. And B, look, when I was younger, I thought 52 is old. I mean, I'm the same. I feel the same.
That's the same thing with me. I thought, man, 50 over the hill. But, 50 is not that bad.
I suddenly don't feel bad about being 48 this year.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's not. First of all, there's.
But you guys look good for your age.
Well, thank you. You have two choices. You could be over the hill or on top of the hill. I choose to be on top of the hill. That's it.
Well said.
Right.
Well said.
Exactly. So I see you still have the same charlatans out there with the used car salesmen bad mouthing one another, for business.
Oh, it's getting worse. Dude. Since you have been on the show for a while, I'd say the last 2 or 3 years is getting worse and worse, man.
I'd agree.
Why is that?
Well, these guys are just basically buying these turnkey solutions. These device manufacturers are selling these machines, and it's not to say that the machines are bad, but their business model that a lot of and I'm going to say non-core hair guys, even though hair transplantation really isn't a core specialty per se. These non-hair guys are getting into the business. They see it as ancillary income. And they're being sold this idea by these device manufacturers that all you have to do is buy this machine, and magic
will happen.
And you'll be able, as long as you book surgeries, we'll help you take care of the surgeries. We'll provide you with staffing and all that stuff, and you'll make a fortune. And the truth is, they can, and there are some doctors who decide to do that, who actually care. They learn how to do hair transplants. And they end up becoming good hair transplant doctors. There's a guy here in Beverly Hills. I don't even know if I should mention his name, but he's a board-certified plastic surgeon. He came to me when he purchased a neograft, told me what he was doing. I told him that he's got to be careful. He spent all these years developing a plastic surgery practice. You don't want to destroy it by fucking somebody up. So take your time learning to do hair transplants. Mm-hmm. Maybe start off small. He's really, his business is aesthetic. So I even suggested maybe concentrate on eyebrows and, start to work your way and, work with people who do eyebrows. This guy was so smart that he ended up hiring a top makeup designer who specializes in eyebrows to help him design the shapes of eyebrows that he was transplanting. And he has been doing it himself, taking out the grafts, using the neograft, doing a spectacular job. And now he's kind of graduating to doing more heads of hair. He's doing it right. Most guys don't do that. They get the machine, bingo, they hire a crew, and they're off to the fucking races.
Yep.
So when you say they hire a crew, do they hire technicians that's already have been trained in transplantation? Or
the technicians are supplied by the company of the manufacturer.
Right.
Really?
They'll have technicians that are contract technicians that are trained on how to use their device, and then there are teams of them that fly around the country to different clinics that buy the machine, whatever it may be, and the clinic will schedule surgeries, and then the teams are contacted. They fly in. Sometimes a doctor comes in. If there's not a doctor, it's at the clinic on a regular basis. And it's contract labor doing a hair transplant.
But I also want to be clear that there are some of these team members are actually really good at what they do.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But the problem is you could have one girl or guy that's really good on one side of your head and somebody who's just new and training on the other side of your head. You would never fucking know.
Before with the old hair transplant mills, some of the big companies that they had the satellite offices, didn't they do that before?
Well, that's actually the way that the industry has been run for a very long time. This is kind of more streamlined. So, the reason why these companies have been able to develop these models and be successful is because hair transplantation, even the guys that have been doing it for a long time, they are the ones who turned it into a commodity. They are the ones who started to share techs or use these technician services where techs themselves would start their own little companies and start to travel around for, some guys are actually qualified hair transplant surgeons. They just didn't need a full-time staff. So it was that model that these device makers really gleaned from. Mm-hmm. So you can't really blame the device makers for it, which is what the hair transplant industry is doing. I spoke to a doctor today. He was telling me how in his area that this is what's happening, and he's pretty upset about it, and I understand it. And he's not one of the guys that ever used revolving techs. He has full-time techs, but I wanted to say, and I didn't, that, really all of this was being done before these companies came into play. Your colleagues have been doing this for years. Now it's just more streamlined. And now there's a company out there that's selling machines and that are really good marketers. They're aggressive. They're good at what they do. They're selling a good device. Mm-hmm. And they just happen to be using the industry's kind of fringe model better than the industry itself, if that makes sense.
Well, how much does a good technician make? I mean, because I understand the doctors make the slits, but the technicians themselves, because they're the ones placing the graft.
Sometimes they're not. I'll tell you what. There's a plastic surgeon in New Jersey who shall remain nameless. He's using a newer device now, which is kind of like a spin-off of kind of like the NeoGraft type of device. And from what I understand, you can go back to thebaldtruth.com and look at some of the archives where I have a doctor, an undercover doctor that went in. He's in the shadows on the show to kind of view what was happening in these clinics. In this particular clinic, these technicians were making about, what was it? I think it was $2 a graft or $3 a graft. It was like half the surgery.
Yeah, they're making half the surgery. Exactly.
They were basically splitting half the surgery. So if they were doing, say 5,000 grafts, and the person was being charged, say $5 a graft, what is that? That's $25,000. They would split that with the doctor, and they would walk away with $6,000 each for the day if they were doing a 5,000 graft case. Some of these technicians, if they're working 200 days a year or 250 days a year or more, they could be making $400,000 a year.
Wow.
As a technician. This particular doctor's like, you know what? Maybe I should become a tech. I don't have to deal with the pressure.
A lot less pressure.
A lot less pressure. Overhead. And he's like, I'm fine with $400K.
Who wouldn't be?
Yeah.
Well, some of the more reputable, transplant outlets that are out there, I'm sure those technicians, they can make or break you.
Well, you really, the bottom line is a hair transplant clinic, a hair transplant surgeon is only as strong, their reputation is only as strong as their weakest links.
Yeah.
Right.
So the technician involvement is huge, and it's extremely important when it comes to the end result. So,
a lot of stamina to do that job too. You're on your feet for quite a while.
Absolutely. Look, I hear stories, man. These guys, they write stuff online. These women come in, some of these young girls, and they smell like cigarettes, and they're just gossiping, and it's a fucking mess. Or you hear the stories of the really great techs who are just really proficient, really caring, always asking how the patient's doing, during the surgery. Having a conversation with the patient that actually may be of some interest to them, telling them, okay, now we're placing this and we're doing this. And, there's some really great technicians out there. But
I would take it these technicians are more likely nurses. Most would be maybe nurses.
I'll let Joe take that one.
You can assume as much. I can tell you that in a lot of cases you'd be wrong. Simply because there's just no regulation over this that I'm aware of. And if there is, then it's doing a bad job. But it's the same model that's been going around for, I don't know, 20, 30 years, where you have these travel technicians that come in, they do the job, they leave, and there's no oversight that I'm aware of. And
I would think that the reputable hair transplant places that, they're renowned, I would think that they would at least have some sort of medical background.
I don't want to laugh. I don't want to laugh.
Really?
You would think that that's the case,
my
and
friend,
in many cases it is.
You would think that, yeah.
In many cases it is the case, but in a lot of cases it's just not.
It's a huge mixed bag. I mean, I've met some of these technicians. They do have a medical background, but unfortunately, not only has this been a problem for many years that very few have talked about, it's becoming a bigger problem because of the introduction of FUE, the lower threshold of the cost of entry into this industry, and it's creating a larger need for this kind of service. Not to mention it's being propagated in mass in Turkey, which is where this is the actual model. Although the technicians are more of stationary employees of a clinic, it goes back to the technician model is growing, and even in places like Turkey, they do have technicians that do go from clinic to clinic. They actually have clinics that or staffing agencies of technicians that have technicians on standby, and there are even clinics that are owned by the technicians. They saw the potential for making money, and they opened their own clinics. And there's not even a doctor that's associated, except for maybe by name.
But that's the thing. It's not even just in Turkey. That's happening. It happens all over Europe. It happens here in the U.S. I know guys who own clinics who are not. They're not surgeons. They own clinics. They find the doctors, and I know one actually really good clinic in Europe that does that, and they happen to be in the UK, and they happen to do very good work, but it's not owned by a doctor. That's just the way that it is. This is a completely unregulated industry. We are, and you're looking at the two guys who are regulating this insane place, and that's it. That's pretty much what it is, and it's sad. But we try to give you guys the best possible information, but there's so many things that can go wrong and will go wrong if people don't do their research. And even if they do their research, those possibilities exist as well. So we just try to give everybody an idea of what can go wrong, what they need to do to try to establish the safest possible experience. And then cross your fingers, man, because it's like any other cosmetic surgery. You may not be happy with it. You can have the best rhinoplasty in the world. If for some reason to your eye it doesn't meet your expectations, you're an unhappy patient.
Exactly.
I'm floored, Charles, because I thought for sure that those technicians were at least, medically trained, at the very least an LPN nurse.
Let me tell you this. I have... well, this is going to sound obnoxious, but I have exceptional eye-hand coordination. Like I was a skilled laborer from a young child, and I have really, to this day, really great eye-hand coordination. If I took a little time to learn, I would be a great hair transplant surgeon in a sense, or a technician. I would be able to do things from soup to nuts. I would be able to start my own company. I'd go in, I'd operate on patients as a non-professional under the auspices of a physician. And if everything blew up, I could make myself $500,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
I can make that happen. I could hire people, the right people. I would put together the best group of technicians that ever existed. And I would be able to sell that group. Are you writing this down, Joe? Before I forget.
I already know this.
It's a good idea. Yeah. And, if I had to work in that capacity for a living, I can do it. I know the nuances. I know everything that needs to be done in order to make that sale, to make that happen, to get involved with all the right doctors. And I would just have to prove myself, which really wouldn't be that difficult because I would be super diligent and hyper vigilant at my job compared to most people working in the industry.
And that's basically just because of the way that you are in general. You're so detail oriented.
I'm a sick dude. I'm not well, but that would be great for hair transplant patients. I would be making sure that I'd be like, Doc, that slit's a little off. Maybe you might want to, use the bevel, widen it so the angle's a little bit different. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's how my mind works. They'd be in the chair for 20 hours, but I would get it done and it'd be perfect. And then, of course, what you don't realize is when you put those grafts in, do you think a lot of these girls are worrying about fold over or grafts bending?
No.
They're not worried about that shit. They're trying to get it in without popping. Make sure those grafts are sitting as flush as possible, maybe slightly, higher than scalp level, but in there tightly so that your molecular glue, so to speak, is going to hold on to that graft. But once
they can leave and go home.
So they can leave, go home, have their edibles or whatever, and live, get laid and have nice dinners. And that's it. That's what they're thinking about. You know what I'd be thinking? I'd be like, I would have to use did you see Aragon's new implanters? Well, I think they're really good, by the way. I have to really.
Yeah, they are. They're awesome.
Yeah. Yep. But that ensures that you're not going to have grafts folding over.
Yep.
So I would have every possible tool in my arsenal as a technician to make sure that this procedure was perfect. And there's a lot of, I would say that most technicians aren't quite as diligent as that. There are a handful, though.
No.
There are some people who really, really care about their work. And luckily, they're attached to some really good doctors who we work with, which is great. But you just don't know, man. That's why we always say, talk to the doctor, ask about their technicians. Who's going to be performing surgery on me? Oh, Mary.
How much experience does she have?
How long has Mary been working for you? How much experience does she have? How many years has she been performing this particular type of surgery? If she's going to be, is she helping with extractions, for instance, or dissection?
I want to see your results too.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. What is her role in the procedure? And show me results of patients where she did her thing on that patient.
And you know what? If you go to a guy like Alan Bauman, for instance, he's proud of that shit. He wants people to know what his staff is doing.
Yeah.
That's unusual.
Yeah.
So, Johnny, let's jump back to your question you had for me in the chat room. What was the question again about repair?
Yeah, repair. We were talking about FUE. Mm-hmm. Repair work. Is it better FUE for certain repair work or strip?
Well, FUE is better for certain repair work and strip is better for certain repair work. It just depends on your starting point. What you're dealing with, what you bring to the table as a repair patient. In my own case, for example, strip was by far the better case because I had 2 strip scars that needed to be addressed. They were both taken out in one fell swoop. Then I had a thin donor scar. It was much longer, but it was very thin. Then I had another surgery, and that one stretched. Then I had a revision surgery. Then I had, it just kept going. But, strip for me was the ideal repair procedure. However, there are a lot of patients out there that may be in the same situation as me, 2 donor scars that are stretched, but maybe they have a tight scalp. FUE would probably be better for them on a number of situations. Like if you take my case where, my hairline was was full of these multi-hair mini grafts that were sticking up at a 90-degree angle, you could argue that those could have been removed via FUE, and I could have beard hair or scalp FUE put into my donor scars to fill it up over a few procedures, and I could go with the shaved appearance and or the shaved look, and not have those scars stand out so much. And I can tell you that had those options been available to me in early 2002, there's a very strong chance that I wouldn't be sitting here with the hair I have now. I'd be a head shaver, living on a dive boat in the South Pacific. So, the procedures are vastly different in what they can accomplish, but it also depends on, the goals of the patient, the characteristics of the patient, what is even possible with one procedure versus another. There's so many things to consider. So in general, you can't say one is better than the other across the board because there are too many variables involved.
Well, what is the yield now for FUE? I know, one time they weren't as large as strip, and I'm sure strip you could probably get more. But we
were talking about that earlier. I mean, I used to say that the growth rates from FUE used to be abysmal, and I was challenging anyone and everyone that was saying 15 years ago that there was a 2% transaction rate overall. That was horseshit. But around 2010, it started to really become consistently better across the board with better clinics. And I think that right now, I mean, is there a difference? Probably. But I think that the difference in final growth rates or yield or survival, however you want to refer to it, I think that it's so minor case to, from one case to the next, if you're dealing with, good clinics across the board, that it doesn't really make a difference visually, which is what matters. I mean, we can't lose sight of the fact that we're dealing with an aesthetic procedure. And so, yeah, there are the hair nerds out there that would like to shave down and be able to count each individual graft and say, oh, well, we have, 100 in this grid, whereas, with FUE, whereas in the strip case on the same head, we've got 103. They want to be able to argue those details. I used to be one of those guys, and I can tell you right now, it's all horseshit. It doesn't matter, because what matters is the aesthetic, and no one can tell me that 3 hairs difference, or say, 2 percentage points difference is going to make any difference visually, and it's going to be the difference between a patient that's happy versus unhappy. That's completely false.
The best thing that ever happened to you was to get out of that fucking box that you were in, because you were really able to open your mind and realize that, that's the bottom line. People have to, if patients are happy with what they got, then if they had, maybe, 2.5% greater yield from either another surgeon or from another procedure, what's the difference really?
Who gives a shit? It's like you can't tell.
Exactly.
And, I mean, there used to be epic battles online that I was involved in some of them, talking about the merits of strip versus FUE, and like I said earlier, I stand by those comments at the time. But at this point, it's to the point you just can't tell. I mean, is there a difference? Probably. There are more influences on an FUE graft that don't exist with a strip graft.
Yes.
But in the past couple of years when I've been visiting clinics, I've made it a point to ask these questions about the differences between a graft from strip versus FUE and these external forces that are present on a FUE graft versus a strip graft. And Dr. Ron Shapiro, he and I had a great discussion about this. I've got an interview on my YouTube channel where we're talking about this. Dr. Loponzula, I talked to him about this when I was visiting him during my my trip to Brussels 2 year or a year and a half ago. And, they're all telling me, yeah, it used to be an issue, but now it's like we understand it more. We've got better tools. No, the fundamentals haven't changed, but the knowledge and the experience has changed, where we know when we're causing damage. We know when we need to back off and maybe re-examine how we're approaching it. So I think that all these things combined have led up to the point where FUE is just as viable as strip, case for case. I mean, obviously there are going to be circumstances in some cases, but yeah, you just can't tell. And I think that anyone that wants to argue about that kind of difference is kind of reaching for straws, really.
Well, with all the innovation that's gone on since the time you had your work done till now, has the cost really, has it gone down, or has it gone up?
Look, it's going to be, honestly, and I'll answer the question from my view, because Joe now is independent, so he has a kind of a broader view as well. But I will tell you that there are clinics that, they are fighting, on price. They are trying to compete based on presenting a lower price to the consumer. So in some cases, prices have gone down. But I think in general, it really is whatever the market will bear and whatever social proof will bear, meaning if the physician has enough social proof, If the physician has, the known chops and the reputation, he's going to be able to charge whatever he wants. And he does. So there are guys out there who charge $9 for a strip graft, and there are guys out there that charge $9 to $11 for an FUE graft. Mm-hmm. And they're able to command that based on their social proof, their reputation, and, in some cases, their marketing. And then you're going to see the $2.50 graft guys. And, what's interesting is this is the problem. There are some guys out there who are willing to charge $3 or $4 per graft, even an FUE graft, who are really good. Mm-hmm. But they're competing with guys who suck charging the same price. Mm-hmm. So they're putting themselves in a lower category, in a lower echelon, based on this whole, price marketing. And sometimes that really bites the good doctors in the ass. So in my view, I really think that in some cases prices have gone down, but in general, for the well-known, skilled doctors and clinics, they haven't. And in some cases, they've gone up.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, Joe, you can contradict me if you think I'm wrong, but
no, I think you're right. I think that what you said about the lower, like doctors that do a good job offering a lower price. I think that was actually a great point because it does put them into a lower quality bracket,
right?
Where they start pulling in the tire kickers that are looking just for price,
right.
Which I think does a disservice to the procedure itself and the industry. When you have people only looking around for price. In fact, like the doctors I'm working with, I get this question all the time. Joe, we're getting these inquiries where the first question out of their mouth is, "What do you charge?" And we're kind of getting overwhelmed with this. What do? I tell them to ignore it.
Yeah.
It's like you can't pander to the tire kickers because if you do, you wind up losing every time.
Well, you ignore it, or you could respond by saying, "Look, if price is your only concern, then we're not the clinic for you." Because we're really more concerned about achieving the best possible results, and we want to work with patients who kind of understand what quality is. And I don't know the exact verbiage I would use. I'm doing it off the top of my head, but I agree with you as far as you don't want to ignore people, because if you ignore people, sadly, in this online insane world, that simple act of ignoring somebody can give you a bad Yelp review.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
I was referring to mainly just not giving them the satisfaction of playing that
right.
What is your lowest price type of game, because that cheapens things, that brings you into the used car salesman level of trying to present yourself. And I just don't think that that's the best way that better clinics should spend their time.
I personally don't even think that better clinics should negotiate price, in my view, in any way. And I think the only time they should negotiate price is if the patient is in real need and can prove that they're potentially maybe not indigent, but they really do have some financial hardships, maybe some repair patients. But I'm not a fan of negotiating cosmetic surgery prices.
No, because in my opinion, I don't want someone that's working on the way I'm going to look for the rest of my life, having some sort of chip on his shoulder because I beat him to death on price and he's given to me for 40% less than what he normally be making.
Right. And
I don't get that logic.
No, it makes no sense. But that's the way the market is, and it's become commoditized. Well, it's commoditized is with a D.
Commoditized.
It hasn't become that way. It's been that way actually from the beginning, since the 70s. It really did start with, the large chain clinics putting it out there, starting to do the ads in muscle magazines. And, just the whole charging by the graft scenario was a foray into the commoditization of the field. So I'm not saying that's a bad idea to charge by the graft at this point. That's the way the industry runs, and that's the way it works. But it's scary. It's just a mess out there. You really have to do your homework, as we always say. Mm-hmm. And Johnny, since the last time you called the program, honestly, in my view, the only thing that's changed is things have gotten worse.
Wow.
And I would agree. I would agree.
I would have thought that it would have gotten, things would have gotten a little better. But
Well, I would say the good doctors and the better doctors have gotten better. Things have gotten better in their hands. They've evolved their practices. They're using, maybe similar or the same type of techniques they're using, 2 or 3 years ago, but they're incorporating different instrumentation. They're refining the work that they're doing with this different instrumentation. They've learned from certain mistakes by using certain types of technicians, whatever. So they're honing their practices, but these are the good guys.
Yeah. And the way that's really gone downhill is that there's such an influx, a massive influx of new clinics that weren't even around two years ago, that are claiming to be experts in the field. In fact, Spencer and I were going to talk about this. We probably don't have time, but there's an FUE conference coming up, and it's where was it? It's in Europe someplace.
It's in Turkey, right?
And and one of the presenters, I know him personally. He's actually a hell of a nice guy. I love this guy to death, but he's being presented as an expert in the field. He's invented his own tools. Yay, I can invent my own tool, but he's only been doing this for 2 years, and he's presented as an expert. In fact,
he's presented as an expert by someone who presents himself as the expert.
As the expert, yeah. And it just, I mean, it's this kind of bullshit that is just helping to perpetuate this explosion of mediocrity, for lack of a better.
That's well said, actually.
The doctors are great. I mean, he's really good at what he. I mean, make no mistake. I really like the doctor, and I may even visit him at some point. But he just started FUE 2 years ago. I was there when he first. I met him when he was at his very first FUE workshop. And he was blown away by it. He loved what he saw. And I remember I've even got emails from this doctor where he's asking me questions, and about FUE and who we should talk to and what I think about this. But it's like it just blows my mind. And not to take away from him, but it shows you the way that this is promoted it's just absolute horseshit.
Well, wouldn't you think that it would be great if this other doctor who actually read this script would have said something to the effect of that, Dr. So-and-so, who is relatively new to the FUE procedure, has really excelled beyond most guys who have been doing this for 10 years.
Yeah, well, there's a way to present it.
Yeah.
And if that were actually, if it were presented in that fashion, that would actually be not only more believable.
And it's true.
It would be relatively true.
Right. So I guess the bottom line is I have to write these guys scripts from now on because
yeah, you and me both.
Because I would say that I put up a video with Dr. Glenn Charles, and I think the title was is your hair transplant doctor telling you the truth, or a surgeon telling you the truth? And to be candid, most aren't. And I think that this YouTube video promoting this conference is proof positive of the willingness of some doctors to just bullshit you. And in some cases, they don't even know they're bullshitting you.
Sometimes they believe their own bullshit.
Yeah, they're just parroting other stuff or reading stuff or just, it's just, look, again, you can get a great hair transplant. Look at Joe. There's so many people out there whose lives have been changed for the better, who have gone to great hair transplant surgeons who really care about what they do, who hire the right staff, who do it right. But if you're going online, you're seeing this shit, and you're reading stuff that people are putting on their own blogs, you cannot believe a fucking word of most of it. You just can't. You got to get third-party verification. You got to speak to patients they've had surgery, who've had surgery with doctors you're considering. You got to try to figure out who their staff is. Joe and I try to do that for you to help you guys, but it's still just a starting point. You still got to do your own due diligence because I could bring somebody onto the IHRS who has all the right stuff, and then in 6 months they decide to change some of their staff over, and all of a sudden, holy shit, we're getting complaints.
Yeah.
Now, that's rare. It hasn't happened a lot in my career, but it has happened. And then all of a sudden you got to say, look, man, unless you fix this, I can't have you be a part of what we're doing.
I just got to say something. I actually just got a message while we're talking about this from someone that I'm dealing with halfway around the world. She sent me a screenshot of an email she got from a clinic that she was talking to, and I know this clinic intimately. I know how they do things, and I actually told her that she needs to ask about the technicians, and this is the response that she just got. This is live.
Yeah.
As for Dr. So-and-so, he has a dedicated technician who is one of the best extractors in the world for FUE, with less than 2 to 3% of the grafts are transected due to the steady accuracy of the extractions. Based on what? I know the technician that he's talking about, and the technician has 2 years of experience. Actually, let me back up. She has less than a year of experience with the current tool set that she's using. And I'd like to know, where are these studies that are showing 2 to 3% transection?
Right.
Is that across the board? Is it only on specific kinds of patients? Is it only on specific kinds of hair? I mean, this is the kind of shit that I'm getting tired of. And this is a reputable clinic that I like I said, I know them. And it's starting to piss me off, because this is sent by the representative to this person I'm dealing with, and I don't know. That's a whole nother show for us.
Well, listen, that's the way that it is.
Yeah,
we know.
So there
that.
you go, Johnny.
And Johnny, if you sadly have been burnt by the hair transplant industry in the past, you can definitely be helped. You can be repaired. There's a lot of great doctors, again, that are doing great work out there. But once they start quoting numbers, like I'll tell you this. If you asked, oh, hey, dog. If you asked like a guy like Bernie Nussbaum, for instance, what's your transection rate with, FUE? They're using an artist robot, and I think they're doing some stuff by hand. They can give you more accurate details and data because that particular device provides that data. So that's great. You can provide that data, and that's why I believe, whether it's the artist or some other device, that robotics really should play a big role in the future of surgical hair restoration or hair transplantation, because we're going to be able to eventually, and we can now, provide consumers with verifiable data.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. Doctors can do that too, but they would have to take every graft, look at it under a microscope, videotape that procedure when they're looking at it under a microscope, do the counts, and then be able to then somehow verify, show you those counts, that, hey, we took out 2,000 grafts and only 25 were transected, and show that to you. That's the only way they'd be able to verify it.
Not to mention, they got to show you, or they should show you, if it's a partial transection or a full transection, because there's a big difference there.
Yes.
And sometimes those numbers aren't actually calculated in the overall presentation. So they may get say a 3% transection, but they're only counting the full transections, not the partial transections, because the partial transections will still grow hair.
Right. Right.
So that's something you got to remember.
You're going to see the bulb. You'll be able to actually visualize it, and they'll be able to show that to you. But there could be a little sliver taken off that you don't even know is taken off. Now, here's the thing. And that's why I think strip, it's still important for people to understand what strip does. I mean, when you take that strip of tissue out, you have a three-dimensional visual of the tissue and the hair follicles that a really skilled technician can cut around. They can see the entire follicle. So the likelihood of transecting that follicle or damaging that follicle is much less likely than when you're doing a blind procedure.
Yep.
That's just the way that it is. So people have to understand the pros and the cons of both procedures. The con of a strip, you're going to have a scar, a long scar in most cases.
No two ways about it.
From ear to ear for the rest of your life.
No one can guarantee that it won't stretch either. I've seen 500 graft strip scars stretch.
Right.
Be too wide.
And you could have nerve damage, whatever. The upside, you're probably, if you go to a skilled team, going to have a much, maybe not much, but you're going to have a less of a transection rate. You may be able to, depending on who's slivering and who's cutting, create a better shaped and potentially more robust graft in general.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the reality of it. So people have to understand this. It's not strip versus FUE, black and white. That's not the way that it works. And I think we've talked long enough about this. It's 7:28 here on the West Coast. Johnny, I hope that, it was great hearing from you.
Yeah.
Listen, recover well. I'm glad you're doing okay.
I'll try call in, a little more often.
You should. We miss you, man.
Tough at times. Yeah, well, I missed the show. I really enjoy talking to you fellas.
Well, and again, heal well. I'm glad you're okay. I'm sorry that you're dealing with your dad. It's just it's an unfortunate part of life.
Yes, it is. But
and we've both been there.
Yeah.
Yep. So I appreciate it. Thank you, fellas. You fellas have a good evening.
All right, you too, man.
All right, thanks again for calling, Johnny.
Take care.
Bye.
All right, guys. We started late, so we ended late. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks for all the phone calls. And Joe Tillman, thanks for your incredible breadth of knowledge.
Thank you. My pleasure.
And everything else that you provide the program. I really do appreciate it. Guys, you're on hold. I'm sorry I can't take your calls. I got to get the fuck out of here. I keep forgetting, man, that we're on radio. Is it really radio? It's internet radio. I mean, it's owned by radio, but it's iHeartRadio. So iHeartRadio is all internet radio.
I guess radio is just the proper word to use, because even though it's not using airwaves per se, it's broadcasting.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. I don't know what there technically there should be no FCC issues.
There aren't.
So, but I know that the company is not really psyched about cursing. At least according to Andrew.
Yeah, well, we're going to find out.
Well, we're still on the air.
Yeah, exactly.
They're still airing the show. So, guys who are listening to us on iHeartRadio, who just tuned in for the first time, welcome. You can check out archives of this broadcast. You can see both of us on video, if you care to, on thebaldtruth.com and Guys from Queens Network, or GFQ. .tv. So it's guysfromqueens.com and what is it? Guysfromqueensnetwork.com? Guys from Queens.
GFQ Network.
GFQnetwork.com.
Yeah.
And GFQ.tv, I think. Andrew, I'm sorry, man. I can't think today. I had a tough day.
It's been a long day.
Yeah. Also, AmericanHairLoss.org for the American Hair Loss Association. You're going to be seeing a lot more about the American Hair Loss Association in the coming months. We've had a rush of press, which is great. So what that means is the mainstream is really taking hair loss a little more seriously, it seems. Mm-hmm. So let's hope that continues. You can check out Joe Tillman's personal website and professional website at hairtransplantmentor.com. Joe answers every email sent.
I actually do.
You do.
It's getting tough, man.
I know. There are times when I'm up late, like 1 o'clock in the morning, and you'll be like, "What's up?" And I'm like,
And I gotta say,
just took an edible and I'm watching TV.
I gotta say, if anyone writes to me asking for help about something, and then I ask for photos and then all this, and then 2 weeks later I say, I think I've got something for you. Don't tell me you've already found let me know if you find something else.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, don't make the poor guy waste his time. He's getting old. He's getting cranky.
I spent 2 weeks on something, and it's like, no, I found another doctor. It's like, anyway.
Yeah, I get it.
I'm glad he got help.
HairTransplantMentor.com, great place to get information. Obviously, you can see Joe's entire hair transplant journey on his website. It's fucking miraculous, by the way. Sorry, iHeartRadio. Also, if you're considering surgical hair restoration, check out the International Alliance of Hair Restoration Surgeons. That's IAHRS.org. If you want to interact with other hair loss sufferers, check out our message forum. Joe Tillman happens to post a lot on the forum. So you could also ask some questions on the forum as well. And if you do it that way, in some cases, you might be helping a lot of people who are going to read it. So that's
actually the preferred way is on the forum.
Yeah, that's the preferred way for Joe and actually for other hair loss sufferers. So if you're going to take the time to write and you think your question is something that other people may be interested in, ask on the forum.
Which it will be. So ask it on Bald Truth Talk.
Right. So that's baldtruthtalk.com. Until next time, be strong, God bless, and thank you guys so much for listening. We'll see you next week.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for any inconvenience you may have been put to prior to the program, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. And if you could now leave by the exits at the rear, that'd be splendid. Thank you. Good night.